The camera finds the stinger first, suspended in open air, framed against a background of blurred foliage and heat shimmer. It is not thrust forward in anger, not yet. It hangs beneath the abdomen like a poised instrument, aligned with intent rather than motion. In this suspended moment, the wasp is not attacking. It is presenting evidence. This is the proof moment, the quiet demonstration that violence is possible, immediate, and precisely controlled. Nothing about the posture is wasted. The legs brace against the surface with spring-loaded tension. The thorax lifts slightly, and the abdomen curls just enough to bring the stinger into view. This is not a threat screamed at the world. It is an offer to disengage, delivered with absolute clarity. To understand the wasp, the stinger must be seen not as a weapon of rage, but as a delivery system engineered for efficiency. Unlike a simple spike meant to tear or crush, the stinger is a modified ovipositor, repurposed by evolution into a hypodermic tool capable of injecting a complex chemical message directly into living tissue. Barbed in some species, smooth in others, it is guided by fine muscular control that allows the wasp to adjust angle, depth, and duration of contact in fractions of a second. The venom itself is not a single substance, but a carefully balanced mixture of peptides, enzymes, and neuroactive compounds that disrupt nerve signaling, trigger pain receptors, and in some cases immobilize prey without killing it. Pain is not collateral damage. Pain is the point. The environment in which this system evolved is one of constant negotiation. Wasps live in exposed spaces, open nests, visible flight paths, predictable foraging routes. Unlike ambush predators that rely on concealment, wasps advertise their presence. Their bodies are wrapped in high-contrast bands of yellow and black, a visual language understood across ecosystems by birds, mammals, and even other insects. These colors are not camouflage. They are warnings, evolved through generations of encounters where predators that ignored the signal paid a price. A wasp does not want to fight. Fighting risks damage to wings, legs, or sensory organs that are essential for survival. The stinger exists to end confrontations before they begin. This is where posture becomes as important as venom. A wasp approaching a perceived threat rarely stings immediately. Instead, it hovers closer, altering its flight pattern to remain within the field of view of the intruder. The body angle changes. The legs dangle more visibly. The abdomen arches, bringing the stinger into the visual foreground. In this sequence, the wasp is communicating escalation. The message is layered. Notice me. Recognize me. Back away. Many animals do. Birds that have learned the cost of ignoring these signals will veer off mid-flight. Mammals will flinch, retreat, or freeze. The system works because it relies on memory. Pain teaches faster than death. If the warning fails, the transition from display to action is nearly instantaneous. Muscular contractions drive the abdomen forward while stabilizing the thorax, allowing the stinger to strike with surgical accuracy. Unlike biting insects that must anchor themselves to deliver damage, wasps can sting and disengage in a single fluid motion, reducing exposure to counterattack. The stinger penetrates skin, exoskeleton, or membrane, and venom flows through internal channels, propelled by muscular pressure rather than passive diffusion. In social species, this moment may also release alarm pheromones, invisible chemical signals that summon nestmates to the site of conflict. What began as a negotiation can escalate into a coordinated defense in seconds. Yet the same system used for defense is also employed in hunting, revealing another layer of sophistication. Many wasps are predators of other insects, spiders and arthropods, and their venom is calibrated not to kill outright, but to paralyze. A paralyzed prey item remains alive, its tissues fresh, its metabolism slowed but intact. This is critical for species that provision nests with living food for developing larvae. The wasp locates a prey animal, often larger than itself, and delivers a precisely placed sting to neural centers that control movement. The prey collapses, immobilized but alive, transformed into a biological storage unit that will sustain the next generation. This dual role of the stinger, deterrent and tool, reflects the ecological position of wasps as regulators rather than destroyers. By preying on herbivorous insects, wasps indirectly protect plants, shaping vegetation dynamics across entire habitats. Their presence influences the behavior of other species, altering feeding patterns, movement routes, and population densities. Even the fear of wasps can change how animals interact with their environment, reducing overgrazing or limiting the spread of certain pests. The stinger, therefore, is not just a personal defense mechanism. It is an instrument of ecological balance. The wasp's sensory world supports this precision. Compound eyes provide a wide field of view, excellent at detecting motion and changes in light intensity. Antennae constantly sample the air, detecting chemical cues from food sources, nestmates, and potential threats. These inputs feed into a nervous system optimized for rapid decision-making rather than reflection. There is no hesitation, no emotional override. The wasp assesses distance, angle, and risk, then acts. This efficiency can appear aggressive to human observers, but it is the opposite of recklessness. It is restraint enforced by capability. Even thermoregulation plays a role in stinger use. Wasps are ectothermic, their activity levels influenced by ambient temperature. On warm days, muscle efficiency increases, reaction times shorten, and venom delivery becomes more effective. This is when wasps are most active, most visible, and most misunderstood. Human encounters often occur during these peak periods, when foraging overlaps with human outdoor activity. Yet even then, most stings occur not because the wasp seeks conflict, but because its warning system is disrupted, swatted at, trapped, or accidentally compressed against skin. In those moments, negotiation collapses, and the stinger performs its final function. There is a quiet irony in how often wasps are described as mindlessly aggressive when their entire defensive strategy is built around avoidance. The bright colors, the hovering displays, the exposed stinger, all are invitations to disengage. The venom is expensive to produce. The risk of injury is real. Evolution has shaped the wasp not into a berserker, but into a strategist. The stinger is not the first word in the conversation. It is the last. As the camera pulls back, the wasp lifts off, stinger retracting beneath the abdomen, posture relaxing as the perceived threat fades. The moment passes without violence. The proof has been shown, the message delivered, and the ecosystem continues its quiet negotiations. In this small exchange, repeated millions of times across forests, fields, and gardens, the wasp demonstrates a fundamental rule of survival. Power is most effective when it does not need to be used. The first movement is not the sting, it never is. In the darkness, where vision collapses into irrelevance, the black scorpion announces itself through force, not poison. The pincers strike first, heavy, deliberate, closing around space with crushing certainty. Dust lifts from the ground in a faint cloud as the pedipalps snap shut, locking prey in a mechanical grip that feels less like an attack and more like a trap suddenly made solid. In this opening moment, the scorpion does not kill. It stabilizes, it removes options. Only once control is absolute does the tail begin to rise. The environment here is unforgiving. Arid ground holds the day's heat long into the night, radiating warmth back into the bodies of nocturnal hunters. Sparse vegetation breaks the landscape into patches of shadow and exposure, and every surface carries vibrations like whispered warnings. This is where the black scorpion thrives, an animal sculpted by darkness, silence, and tactile information rather than sight. Its glossy exoskeleton absorbs little light, rendering it nearly invisible against rock and soil. What defines this predator is not how it looks, but how it feels the world move. The pincers, often mistaken as secondary tools compared to the venomous tail, are the true opening act of the scorpion's predatory strategy. Thick, muscular, and deeply innervated, they function as both weapons and sensors. When they close, they do not merely restrain prey, they read it. Resistance patterns, muscle tension, struggling intensity, all feed into the scorpion's nervous system, informing the next decision. Small, compliant prey may never be stung at all. Larger or more dangerous targets trigger escalation. This two-stage capture system allows the scorpion to conserve venom, a resource that is metabolically expensive to produce and vital for survival. As the claws clamp down, the tail uncoils. It arches overhead in a smooth, practiced curve, segments stacking like articulated armor plates. The stinger at the tip gleams faintly, not from reflected light, but from its polished hardness. The motion is fast, but not frantic. There is no wasted energy. The scorpion has already won the moment the pincers closed. The sting is not a gamble. It is a calculation. The venom itself is a chemical toolkit rather than a blunt instrument. Composed of neurotoxins that interfere with ion channels in nerve membranes, it disrupts communication between neurons and muscles with terrifying efficiency. In prey animals, this results in paralysis, loss of coordination, and eventual shutdown of vital systems. The dose is carefully controlled. A shallow sting may immobilize without killing, preserving fresh tissue. A deeper injection ends resistance completely. For the scorpion, venom is not about cruelty or speed. It is about certainty. What makes this system devastating in darkness is the scorpion's ability to detect prey long before contact. The ground beneath its legs is alive with information. Specialized sensory hairs and slit sensilla embedded in the exoskeleton detect minute vibrations caused by footsteps, wing beats, or the scraping movement of an insect crossing sand. These vibrations travel through the substrate faster and more reliably than sound through air, creating a map of the environment that updates in real time. The scorpion does not need to see its prey. It feels distance, direction, and size through patterns of pressure. Each leg contributes to this sensory network, allowing the scorpion to triangulate the exact position of a moving animal. The difference in vibration arrival times between legs is enough to determine angle and speed. A beetle walking across sand announces itself with every step, broadcasting its location to any scorpion within range. By the time the prey becomes aware of danger, the pincers are already closing. Darkness, which protects so many nocturnal creatures, offers no refuge here. This sensory advantage shapes the scorpion's behavior. It moves slowly, conserving energy, pausing frequently to sample the ground. Sudden motion is rare. When it does move, it is purposeful, guided by vibration rather than sight. This patience reduces exposure to predators and limits unnecessary encounters. The scorpion does not chase. It waits for the environment to betray its inhabitants. The two-stage capture method also serves a defensive role. When threatened by a predator, the scorpion again leads with its pincers, raising them in a wide confrontational display. This posture increases apparent size and establishes a physical barrier. Only if the threat persists does the tail rise, signaling a final warning. Many predators recognize this silhouette instinctively, those that do not learn quickly. A sting delivered to soft tissue can deter even large animals, reinforcing the scorpion's position in the food web. Thermoregulation underpins all of this behavior. As an ectotherm, the scorpion relies on environmental heat to fuel muscle activity and venom efficacy. During cooler nights, movements slow, reaction times lengthen, and hunting becomes more selective. On warm nights, the scorpion is at peak performance, capable of faster strikes and more aggressive engagement. This is why activity peaks after sunset, when residual ground heat combines with lower predation risk. The scorpion times its life to the thermal rhythms of its habitat. There is an unsettling efficiency in how little the scorpion needs to survive. It can go months without food, its metabolism slowing to a near standstill. Water requirements are minimal, often met through prey fluids. This endurance allows it to wait out scarcity, remaining hidden beneath rocks or burrowed into soil, its senses still tuned to the faintest vibrations above. When opportunity returns, the system reactivates without hesitation. Ecologically, the black scorpion is a regulator rather than a dominator. By preying on insects and other arthropods, it controls populations that might otherwise explode under favorable conditions. Its presence influences how prey species move, when they emerge, and where they forage. Even unseen, the scorpion shapes behavior through the constant risk it represents. In this way, its impact extends far beyond the individuals it consumes. There is a quiet lesson embedded in the scorpion's method. Power is layered. Control comes first, escalation second. The pincers remove chaos, the venom removes resistance. Darkness is not a handicap but an ally, transformed into a sensory advantage through evolution's patient refinement. The scorpion does not rush. It does not guess. It waits until the world reveals itself through vibration, then acts with irreversible precision. As the scene settles, the scorpion retreats beneath a stone, tail lowering, pincers relaxing. The ground grows quiet again. But the system remains active, tuned to the slightest disturbance. In this ecosystem, survival belongs not to the fastest or the strongest, but to those who can read the invisible and act without error. The stillness comes first. In the layered greens of understory vegetation, where leaves overlap and stems intersect at irregular angles, the praying mantis disappears not through concealment, but through patience. Its body aligns with the architecture of the plant world so completely that motion becomes the only betrayal. The head remains fixed, triangular and alert, eyes tracking depth and distance with a precision that feels almost deliberate. Nothing about this predator suggests urgency. The mantis does not hunt by chase or ambush sprint. It waits, allowing the ecosystem to deliver prey into reach. When movement finally breaks the pattern, a fly hovering too close, a grasshopper shifting its weight, the weapon reveals itself. The forelegs, folded neatly against the thorax, unfold in a sudden explosive motion that collapses space in an instant. They do not swipe. They close. The motion resembles a trap snapping shut rather than a strike landing. In less time than conscious perception allows, the prey is no longer free. It is contained. These forelegs are not arms in the mammalian sense, nor claws like those of crustaceans. They are raptorial appendages, evolved explicitly for capture and restraint. Each segment is reinforced with hardened cuticle, and along the inner edges run rows of sharp spines, angled inward like the teeth of a mechanical clamp. When the legs close, these spines interlock around the prey's body, preventing lateral movement or rotation. Escape routes vanish instantly. What looks like a simple grasp is in fact a cage built from living parts. The genius of this system lies not in raw force, but in control. The mantis does not rely on crushing strength to subdue prey. Instead, it immobilizes through geometry. Once the forelegs close, the prey is pinned against the thorax, its limbs trapped, wings crumpled, leverage eliminated. Even insects larger than the mantis itself can be held in place if their ability to generate torque is neutralized. This is why the mantis can capture animals that would otherwise overpower it in a direct contest. What follows is not a single final grip, but a sequence of adjustments. The mantis regrips. As prey struggles, the forelegs shift fractionally, tightening angles, relocating spines, redistributing pressure. Each movement is small but decisive, ensuring that any attempt to twist free only worsens the entanglement. This adaptive grip is critical. Insects are resilient, built to survive crushing forces and violent impacts. The mantis counters this resilience by denying motion rather than inflicting immediate damage. The environment shapes this strategy. Mantises are visual predators operating in dense, three-dimensional spaces where speed alone is unreliable. Leaves obstruct lines of attack. Stems create unpredictable barriers. Prey can drop, jump, or vanish behind foliage in an instant. In such conditions, a missed strike is costly. The mantis compensates by ensuring that when it does strike, success is nearly guaranteed. The forelegs close only when distance, angle, and timing align perfectly. There is no second attempt. There does not need to be one. Vision plays a crucial role in this precision. Unlike most insects, mantises possess a degree of binocular vision, allowing them to judge depth accurately. Their compound eyes, combined with mobile head rotation, create a three-dimensional understanding of space. Subtle head movements, often mistaken for curiosity, are actually calculations, measuring parallax shifts to determine exact range. The strike is triggered not by proximity alone, but by certainty. Once captured, the mantis wastes no energy on spectacle. It begins feeding almost immediately, often while the prey is still alive. This is not cruelty, but efficiency. Insects lack centralized pain processing in the way vertebrates do, and the mantis' priority is nutrient intake, not dispatch. By feeding quickly, it reduces the risk of interference from other predators or scavengers. The forelegs maintain their grip throughout the process, adjusting continuously as the prey weakens. This method of control-first predation has broader ecological implications. Mantises are generalist predators, consuming flies, moths, grasshoppers, and even other mantises. Their presence influences insect behavior, pushing prey species to alter flight paths, feeding times, and perch selection. In habitats where mantises are common, insects that rely on hovering or slow movement near vegetation face increased risk. Over time, this pressure shapes community dynamics, favoring species that can avoid detection or move unpredictably. The mantis itself is shaped by these interactions. Its elongated body and leaf-like appendages are not merely camouflage, but tools that allow it to integrate seamlessly into the physical structure of plants. By aligning its limbs with stems and veins, it reduces visual noise, making motion harder to detect. This stillness is metabolically cheap. As an ectotherm, the mantis conserves energy by remaining inactive for long periods, relying on environmental heat to maintain readiness. When the strike comes, stored energy is released in a single, decisive burst. There is a subtle irony in how slow the mantis appears compared to how fast it truly is. While it may sway gently in the breeze, mimicking leaf movement, its strike is among the fastest in the insect world. Yet speed is secondary. The forelegs are not designed to chase prey down, but to terminate movement entirely. Once contact is made, speed becomes irrelevant. Control has been achieved. Reproduction reinforces this design. Female mantises, larger and more powerful than males, rely on the same foreleg mechanics during mating interactions. The infamous instances of sexual cannibalism are not acts of aggression, but outcomes of proximity to a predator whose primary response to contact is restraint. The same spines that secure prey can just as easily secure a mate that moves at the wrong moment. This is not a behavioral anomaly. It is consistency taken to an extreme. Across ecosystems, from tropical forests to temperate gardens, the mantis occupies a niche defined by precision and restraint. It does not dominate through numbers or speed, but through reliability. Each capture reinforces the value of control as a survival strategy. In a world where many predators gamble on pursuit, the mantis waits for certainty. As the scene fades, the mantis returns to stillness, forelegs folded once more, spines hidden, weapon disguised as posture. The vegetation resumes its quiet motion, insects resume their paths, unaware of how narrow the margins truly are. In this ecosystem, survival does not always belong to the fastest hunter, but to the one that never lets go. The ground-level world is a maze of vertical surfaces, shadows, and sudden drops, where distance is measured not in meters but in body lengths. On a sunlit rock face or the bark of a tree, the jumping spider pauses, its body angled slightly forward, legs bent beneath it like compressed springs. Unlike predators that announce themselves through movement or vibration, this hunter begins with observation. 8 eyes, arranged in tiers across a compact head, survey the environment with a clarity that feels out of proportion to its size. This is not a creature reacting blindly to motion. It is assessing, calculating, and waiting for certainty. The defining feature of the jumping spider is its vision, and everything else about its hunting strategy unfolds from this single advantage. The large, forward-facing principal eyes function with remarkable acuity, capable of resolving fine detail and depth. They do not merely detect light and shadow, they interpret shape, distance, and even subtle color cues. Secondary eyes expand the field of view, allowing the spider to monitor movement behind and to the sides without turning its body. The result is a predator that sees the world more like a vertebrate than an insect, constructing a mental map of its surroundings before making a move. In this ecosystem, speed alone would be wasteful. Surfaces are uneven, prey is alert, and a misjudged leap could send the spider tumbling into exposure. Instead, the jumping spider stalks. It advances in short, deliberate steps, pausing frequently to reassess. Each pause refines the calculation. The spider shifts its body angle, adjusts leg placement, and subtly reorients its head to gather parallax information. These micro-movements allow it to gauge distance with astonishing precision, converting visual data into a three-dimensional understanding of space. The prey, often an insect capable of flight or rapid escape, remains unaware. From its perspective, the spider is just another irregularity in the background, motionless and unthreatening. This is where the illusion breaks. When the jump comes, it is not a reckless lunge but a guided projectile. The spider launches itself through the air with legs extending in perfect synchrony, body stabilized, trajectory locked. A silk line anchors the leap, acting as both a safety tether and a braking system, ensuring that even failure does not result in fatal loss. Contact is immediate and decisive. The spider does not bite at random. It places its chelicerae with intent, targeting vulnerable areas where the exoskeleton is thinner or where nerve clusters are concentrated. This accuracy is what defines the encounter. The venom follows, but it is secondary. Pain, paralysis, and shutdown occur because the bite lands exactly where it needs to. The spider does not overwhelm prey chemically. It disables it surgically. Venom composition varies among species, but in jumping spiders, it is generally calibrated for efficiency rather than brute force. Neurotoxins disrupt normal nerve function, but the delivery is precise enough that large doses are unnecessary. This conserves energy and reduces the time between capture and feeding. The prey, once struck, loses coordination rapidly, its escape response collapsing before it can be deployed. The spider maintains contact, adjusting grip as needed, but the outcome is already sealed. This accuracy-first approach reflects the spider's ecological role. Jumping spiders are active hunters, not web builders, and their success depends on repeatable precision. Each hunt is an investment of time and energy, and failure carries risk. By relying on vision and controlled movement, the spider minimizes uncertainty. It does not gamble on venom potency alone. It ensures that venom is applied exactly where it will be most effective. The environment reinforces this strategy. Jumping spiders inhabit complex habitats filled with visual clutter, foliage, rocks, walls, and human structures. In such spaces, vibration-based hunting would be unreliable, and web construction would limit mobility. Vision allows the spider to exploit vertical surfaces and open air gaps, expanding its hunting territory. It can pursue prey across leaves, leap between branches, and even hunt other spiders, using visual cues to anticipate behavior. There is a feline quality to this approach, a convergence of strategy across vastly different scales. Like a cat, the jumping spider relies on patience, stealth, and a final burst of controlled violence. It does not chase for long distances. It positions itself, waits for the right moment, and commits fully when the probability of success is highest. This convergence is not coincidence. It is the result of similar ecological pressures shaping similar solutions, regardless of body size or lineage. Thermoregulation subtly influences this behavior. As an ectotherm, the spider's muscle performance is tied to ambient temperature. Warmer conditions increase jump distance and reaction speed, expanding hunting windows. Cooler temperatures slow movement, forcing the spider to be even more selective. This sensitivity to heat creates daily rhythms of activity, with peak hunting occurring when light and warmth combine to maximize visual performance and muscle efficiency. The spider's sensory world extends beyond sight. Fine hairs on its legs detect air movement and substrate vibrations, providing backup information during the final approach. These inputs are integrated seamlessly, refining the strike rather than replacing it. Vision leads. Everything else supports. The result is a predator that can adapt to unpredictable prey behavior without sacrificing precision. Ecologically, jumping spiders exert a quiet influence. They regulate insect populations at small scales, affecting which species dominate microhabitats. Their presence alters prey behavior, encouraging insects to move more erratically or avoid exposed surfaces. Over time, these pressures shape the structure of local communities, favoring species that can detect visual predators early or exploit refuges beyond the spider's reach. Even interactions with potential predators reflect this visual intelligence. Jumping spiders can recognize threats and respond with deceptive movements, sudden changes in direction, or controlled retreats. Some species perform threat displays, raising legs or altering posture to appear larger, using visual signals rather than chemical defenses. Again, the pattern holds. Control comes before escalation. As the scene concludes, the spider resumes its quiet patrol, moving across bark and stone with fluid confidence. Its eyes scan continuously, interpreting a world of angles and distances invisible to most creatures. In this small hunter, pain is not delivered through overwhelming venom or brute force, but through knowledge applied at the exact moment it matters. Accuracy is the weapon. Vision is the guide. And in a world measured in millimeters and milliseconds, that is enough. The forest floor is quiet, but not empty. Beneath the canopy, where light filters down in fractured beams and humidity clings to bark and leaf litter, the air carries the weight of slow decay. Rotting wood softens under fungal networks, sap bleeds from old wounds, and the scent of fermentation draws life from every direction. This is the arena of the stag beetle, a creature whose most famous feature is often misunderstood because it is judged by the wrong standard. The jaws do not exist to kill. They exist to move bodies through space. The first impression is scale. Even at rest, the mandibles dominate the silhouette, rising from the head like branching antlers, each curve exaggerated by thickened cuticle and reinforced joints. They appear excessive, even impractical, until the context becomes clear. These beetles are not hunters in the traditional sense. They do not chase prey or deliver venom. Their conflicts are vertical, spatial, and brutally mechanical. The mandibles are not knives. They are grappling hooks. The environment explains why. Stag beetles are tied to trees in every phase of their lives. Larvae spend years hidden inside decaying wood, consuming cellulose broken down by fungi and microbes. Adults emerge into a world structured almost entirely in height rather than distance. Tree trunks, branches, sap flows, and vertical rivalries define their existence. Food sources are limited and localized, and access matters more than speed. When multiple males converge on the same sap site, the contest is not about inflicting wounds. It is about removing competitors from the platform. The jaws close with force, but not with the intent to pierce. The inner surfaces of the mandibles are shaped to clamp rather than slice, with ridges and teeth positioned to lock around another beetle's thorax or limbs. When two males meet, they rear upward, bodies angled back, mandibles opening wide. This posture is not display alone. It is preparation. The fight begins with alignment, each beetle attempting to secure a grip that transfers leverage through the neck and thorax. Once contact is made, the mechanics take over. The mandibles close, not crushing, but fixing the rival in place. Muscles anchored deep within the head and thorax contract, and the beetle lifts. The goal is elevation. Even a small vertical displacement changes the outcome. As one beetle loses contact with the surface, traction disappears. Legs flail against air. Balance collapses. In this suspended moment, strength matters less than positioning. The drop follows. At human scale, a fall from a branch may seem trivial. At insect scale, it is often fatal. Gravity does not scale down kindly. The distance between branches or from trunk to forest floor represents an immense vertical descent relative to body size. The impact can rupture internal tissues, fracture exoskeletons, or leave the fallen beetle stunned and exposed to predators. Even if the beetle survives the fall intact, the cost is immense. Climbing back to the contested resource requires time and energy, and the opportunity may be gone by the time it returns. This is why the jaws do not need to kill. The environment finishes the job. The physics of falling define the stag beetle's strategy. Mass increases faster than structural strength as size grows, meaning that larger beetles experience greater forces on impact. Evolution has not selected for shock absorption here. It has selected for avoidance. The best defense is to not fall. The best offense is to make sure your rival does. The mandibles are perfectly adapted for this role. Their exaggerated length increases leverage, allowing the beetle to lift opponents larger than itself. The curved tips help guide the rival's body into a stable grip, preventing slippage during the lift. Even the asymmetry seen in some species improves control, enabling more secure holds during twisting contests. Every aspect of their shape reflects a single function: spatial dominance. These battles are not chaotic. They are structured, almost ritualized. Most confrontations resolve quickly, with one beetle yielding before being lifted. This conserves energy and reduces injury risk. Serious fights occur when rivals are evenly matched in size and strength. Even then, the objective remains consistent: gain leverage, lift, displace, end the conflict. The ecosystem reinforces this approach. Adult stag beetles have limited lifespans and narrow windows for reproduction. Wasting time on prolonged fights or lethal combat would reduce mating opportunities. By relying on throwing rather than killing, the beetles resolve conflicts efficiently, maintaining population stability while still enforcing competition. The losers are not necessarily dead, but they are removed from the immediate reproductive arena. There is an irony in how intimidating the mandibles appear compared to how rarely they are used to inflict direct harm. They are oversized, not because killing requires them, but because physics demands them. In a vertical world, control of height is control of survival. The jaws are tools for manipulating gravity. Thermoregulation influences these contests as well. Stag beetles are ectothermic, and muscle performance varies with temperature. On warm evenings, when sap flows more freely and activity peaks, fights become more frequent and more intense. Warmer muscles generate stronger lifts, increasing the likelihood of decisive throws. Cooler conditions slow reaction times and reduce grip strength, making beetles more cautious and conflicts shorter. Even the beetle's choice of battleground reflects this understanding. Fights typically occur on bark, where grip is reliable, rather than on smooth surfaces where both parties risk falling. The beetles instinctively position themselves where they have traction, turning the environment into an extension of their anatomy. Beyond rivalry, the mandibles also play a role in interaction with the landscape. Beetles use them to manipulate debris, wedge themselves into crevices, and stabilize their bodies on vertical surfaces. This versatility reinforces the idea that these jaws are not weapons of destruction, but tools of force application and control. Predators observe these dynamics as well. Birds and mammals learn to exploit fallen beetles, waiting beneath sap sites to capture individuals knocked to the ground. In this way, stag beetle combat feeds directly into the broader food web. The act of throwing a rival not only removes competition, but also contributes energy to other trophic levels. The ecosystem absorbs every outcome. As the scene settles, one beetle remains on the trunk, mandibles lowered, sap dripping slowly nearby. The other is gone, vanished into the undergrowth below. There is no blood, no visible injury, only absence. In the logic of this world, that is enough. The jaws have done their work, not by ending a life directly, but by letting gravity deliver the verdict. The tree trunk rises like a living column, its surface ridged and scarred by age, coated in lichens and dampened by the slow seep of sap. At this vertical frontier, gravity is not a background force, but the central rule that governs every interaction. Here, the rhinoceros beetle takes its position, heavy-bodied and deliberate, claws embedded in bark, horn angled forward, not in threat, but in preparation. At first glance, the horn appears excessive, even ornamental, a weapon shaped for intimidation rather than use. But nothing about this structure is decorative. It is an instrument built for leverage. The beetle's mass is immediately apparent. Compared to other insects of similar length, the rhinoceros beetle is dense, its exoskeleton thickened and reinforced to support the stresses of climbing and combat. This weight would be a liability without grip. The legs compensate with hooked claws that dig into irregularities in the bark, anchoring the body securely against gravity. Each foot finds purchase in micro cracks and raised fibers, transforming the tree's surface into a climbable landscape. Before any contest begins, the beetle has already secured its foundation. The horn defines the fight, but it does not function alone. It is an extension of the beetle's entire body architecture, a lever that transfers force generated in the thorax and legs into controlled upward motion. When two males meet at a sap site, they do not rush or strike. They approach cautiously, circling, testing footing. The horn is held low at first, aligned with the surface of the bark. This is not a challenge display. It is a positioning phase. Once engagement begins, the physics take over. The rhinoceros beetle drives forward, horn sliding beneath the body of its opponent. The motion is smooth and deliberate, guided by tactile feedback rather than sight. The horn's curvature is critical here. It is shaped to scoop rather than pierce, allowing it to slip under the rival's center of mass. As the horn rises, the beetle straightens its legs, converting horizontal push into vertical lift. The effect is unmistakable. One beetle becomes a machine, the other cargo. This is where leverage reveals its power. The horn acts as the long arm of a lever, while the beetle's legs and thorax serve as the fulcrum. Even a slight upward force applied at the right angle produces significant torque, enough to unbalance a rival of similar size. The lifted beetle loses traction as its feet leave the bark. Without grip, strength becomes irrelevant. The contest ends not with injury, but with displacement. The moment of release is decisive. The lifted beetle is tipped backward or sideways, dropped from the tree with no control over its descent. At insect scale, this fall is catastrophic. The distance to the forest floor represents many times the beetle's body length, and the impact can damage internal organs, fracture joints, or leave the beetle stunned and vulnerable. Even survival carries a cost. Climbing back to the sap site takes time, and the opportunity to mate may be lost. This strategy reflects the environment in which it evolved. Rhinoceros beetles inhabit vertical worlds where resources are localized and competition is intense. Sap flows attract multiple individuals, but only one can occupy the optimal feeding position. Killing a rival would be inefficient and risky. A fall, by contrast, resolves the conflict quickly and reliably, outsourcing lethality to gravity. The horn surface often bears scratches and wear marks, evidence of repeated use. These scars tell a story of mechanical stress rather than violent injury. The horn is not designed to puncture or tear. Its strength lies in resisting bending forces and transmitting load. Beneath the cuticle, the internal structure is reinforced with dense material that resists compression, allowing the horn to function under repeated strain without failure. Evolution has refined this tool for durability, not sharpness. Grip completes the system. While the horn lifts, the legs hold. The beetle's claws lock into bark with remarkable tenacity, preventing backsliding even as weight shifts forward. Muscles in the legs and thorax contract in coordinated patterns, stabilizing the body while force is applied. This coordination is essential. Without secure anchoring, the beetle would risk falling along with its opponent. The fight is won by the individual that can apply force without sacrificing balance. Thermoregulation influences these encounters. As ectotherms, rhinoceros beetles rely on ambient temperature to fuel muscle activity. Warm nights increase strength and responsiveness, making lifts faster and more forceful. Cooler conditions reduce performance, often resulting in shorter, less decisive contests. This temperature dependence creates temporal patterns in beetle activity, with peak competition occurring when conditions favor maximum power output. The horn also serves as a visual signal. Larger horns often indicate stronger individuals, discouraging smaller rivals from engaging at all. This reduces the frequency of physical contests, conserving energy and minimizing injury across the population. When fights do occur, they are usually between evenly matched individuals, ensuring that the outcome reflects genuine competitive ability rather than chance. Beyond combat, the horn contributes to the beetle's interaction with its environment. It can be used to maneuver through debris, brace against surfaces, or stabilize the body during climbing. This multifunctionality reinforces the idea that the horn is not a specialized weapon in the narrow sense, but a versatile tool shaped by the demands of a vertical lifestyle. Ecologically, rhinoceros beetles play a role far beyond their dramatic confrontations. As larvae, they process decaying wood, accelerating nutrient cycling and supporting soil health. As adults, their feeding behavior influences sap flow dynamics and creates feeding opportunities for other organisms. Even their fights contribute to the ecosystem, as fallen beetles become prey for birds and mammals, transferring energy across trophic levels. There is a stark elegance to this form of violence. No venom, no tearing jaws, no pursuit, just physics applied with precision. The beetle does not need to harm its rival directly. It needs only to change the rival's position in space. In a world governed by gravity, that change is often enough. As the scene draws back, one beetle remains anchored to the bark, horn lowered, body steady. The other is gone, lost to the understory below. Sap continues to drip, insects continue to arrive, and the cycle repeats. The horn has fulfilled its purpose not as a weapon of destruction, but as a lever of inevitability, proving once again that in nature, control of force matters more than force itself. At the forest edge, where sunlight fractures through layered canopies and humidity hangs thick in the air, movement begins long before it is noticed. A line forms at ground level, then another and another, each composed of small, dark bodies flowing with purpose across soil, roots, and fallen leaves. Individually, each leafcutter ant is unremarkable, its size modest, its presence easy to dismiss. Together, they transform the landscape. What appears at first as background motion resolves into an organized system, and within that system, the weapon is not speed, venom, or size. It is industry. The mandibles are the first clue. Serrated, powerful, and driven by disproportionately large muscles housed within the head, these jaws are built not for tearing flesh, but for cutting plant matter with mechanical precision. When a leafcutter ant climbs a stem and positions itself along the edge of a leaf, it does not hack or chew indiscriminately. It anchors its hind legs, braces its body, and begins to cut a smooth, deliberate arc. Each bite overlaps the last, creating a clean, curved incision that traces a predictable path. The leaf yields not because the ant is strong in isolation, but because the mandibles are engineered to apply force efficiently, converting muscle contraction into controlled slicing. This cutting behavior is not incidental. Leaf tissue varies in thickness, toughness, and chemical defense, and the ants adjust their technique accordingly. Harder leaves require slower, more forceful bites. Softer tissues are harvested quickly. The mandible's serrations grip plant fibers, preventing slippage and reducing wasted effort. The result is a fragment sized precisely for transport, balanced against the ant's body weight, and optimized for carrying back to the nest. Even at this stage, the logic of the system is visible. Nothing is done without purpose. Once detached, the leaf fragment is lifted overhead, transforming the ant into a moving signal. These green banners mark active foraging routes, guiding other workers toward productive sources. The forest floor becomes a shifting map of information, drawn not with sound or sight, but with motion and chemistry. Pheromone trails reinforce successful paths, concentrating labor where it is most effective. This is not chaos. It is distributed decision-making, refined through millions of years of selection. The jaws that cut leaves are the same jaws used in conflict. When threatened, leafcutter ants do not rely on individual combat prowess. Instead, they deploy numbers and coordination. Serrated mandibles close around legs, antennae, or joints of intruders, gripping rather than crushing. The goal is immobilization. One ant clamps, another pulls, a third braces against the substrate. Forces add together, not through size, but through synchronization. This push and pull defines leafcutter combat. Ants position themselves around a target, each responding to tactile and chemical cues. If resistance increases, more workers arrive. If the intruder struggles, grip points shift. The system adapts in real time, redistributing effort where it is most effective. An insect many times the size of a single ant can be overwhelmed, not through damage inflicted by any one mandible, but through the cumulative effect of dozens working in concert. The environment amplifies this advantage. Leafcutter ants dominate warm, humid ecosystems, where plant growth is abundant and decomposition rapid. Their nests, often hidden beneath the soil or within mounds of excavated earth, house fungal gardens cultivated from the very leaves they harvest. This symbiosis defines their existence. The ants do not eat the leaves directly. They feed them to a specialized fungus that breaks down cellulose and produces nutrient-rich structures the ants can consume. The mandibles, therefore, are tools of agriculture as much as weapons. This agricultural dependence shapes their aggression. Defending the foraging workforce is equivalent to defending the food supply of the entire colony. Any threat along the trail is treated as a systemic risk. The response is immediate and overwhelming. Chemical alarms spread rapidly, recruiting nearby workers into coordinated action. The swarm forms not out of panic, but out of necessity. At the physiological level, each ant is specialized. Worker castes vary in size and mandible shape, optimized for different tasks. Smaller workers tend the fungus and maintain the nest. Medium-sized workers cut and carry leaves. Larger soldiers with disproportionately massive jaws focus on defense. These soldiers do not forage. They patrol. When conflict arises, they anchor themselves to the substrate and apply force, acting as living clamps that stabilize the swarm's efforts. Thermoregulation influences all of this activity. Leafcutter ants are ectothermic, their metabolism tied closely to ambient temperature. Foraging peaks when conditions allow sustained activity without overheating. Trails shift with the sun, moving into shade during the hottest hours and expanding outward during cooler periods. This temporal regulation ensures that the colony operates near peak efficiency, minimizing losses and maximizing return. Predator-prey dynamics further reveal the power of swarm logic. Birds, reptiles, and mammals quickly learn to avoid active trails. Those that do not are met with biting mandibles, formic acid sprays from some species, and relentless pursuit. Pain is not delivered through toxins alone, but through persistence. An ant that loses its grip is replaced instantly by another. There is no retreat signal, no negotiation. The system absorbs losses and continues. Even parasites and pathogens face this industrial defense. Infected individuals are often isolated or removed from the colony, preventing spread. The same jaws that slice leaves can dismantle compromised nestmates, a grim but effective form of quality control. This collective immunity reinforces the idea that survival here is communal, not individual. Ecologically, leafcutter ants are ecosystem engineers. Their harvesting influences plant community composition, favoring species that can tolerate or recover from defoliation. Their nests aerate soil, redistribute nutrients, and alter microbial communities. The fungal gardens concentrate organic matter, creating hotspots of biological activity. Through sheer scale and coordination, these ants reshape their environment. There is a stark contrast between perception and reality. To an outside observer, a single ant appears fragile, almost insignificant. Yet the system it belongs to is anything but. Strength here is emergent, arising from interaction rather than anatomy. The jaws are sharp, but it is the choreography that makes them dangerous. As the camera pulls back, the trail continues, ants flowing in both directions, leaves rising and falling like green signals against the forest floor. Somewhere along the line, a disturbance occurs, and the formation tightens, responses cascading through chemical cues and physical contact. The forest does not erupt in violence. It adjusts. And within that adjustment, the leafcutter ants demonstrate a fundamental truth of survival at scale. One body is small, but a coordinated system can dominate worlds far larger than itself. The first warning is not sound or motion, but a shift in intent. On a leaf surface warmed by the sun, the shieldbug rests with deceptive calm, its broad, angular body pressed low against the plant, colors blending into the geometry of veins and shadows. It does not flee when approached. It does not raise spines or bare teeth. Instead, it adjusts its posture almost imperceptibly, rotating its body just enough to align an invisible system that has nothing to do with strength and everything to do with consequence. The shieldbug's weapon cannot be seen, but it is always ready. Hidden within its abdomen are specialized glands filled with volatile chemical compounds produced and stored with metabolic care. These substances are not designed to kill. They are not injected, nor do they tear tissue or shut down nerves. Their power lies elsewhere, they rewrite behavior. The ecosystem around the shieldbug is dense with predators that test, probe, and sample potential meals. Birds peck, lizards snap, spiders investigate with cautious touches. For most insects, survival depends on speed or concealment. For the shieldbug, survival depends on memory. The chemicals it deploys do not need to incapacitate an attacker. They need only to ensure that the attacker never makes the same mistake twice. The glands that hold this chemical defense open to the exterior through small pores positioned strategically along the body. When threatened, muscles surrounding these reservoirs contract, building pressure. This pressure can be released gradually, creating a localized cloud, or explosively, projecting a focused spray outward. The choice is not random. It is guided by proximity, angle, and threat intensity. As a predator closes in, the shieldbug pivots. The movement is subtle but precise, rotating the abdomen so that the gland openings face the source of danger. This is aiming, not in the ballistic sense, but in a chemical one. By controlling body orientation and muscular contraction, the shieldbug determines where the spray goes and how concentrated it will be. The closer the threat, the tighter and more forceful the release. The chemistry itself is finely tuned. The compounds vary among species, but they often include aldehydes, esters, and other reactive molecules that irritate sensory systems. When inhaled or contacted, they trigger immediate aversion. Eyes water. Mucous membranes burn. Taste receptors are overwhelmed. The experience is not merely unpleasant, it is startling. The predator recoils not because it is injured, but because the cost of continuing suddenly outweighs the benefit. This distinction matters. The shieldbug does not seek to defeat predators physically. It seeks to alter decision-making. In ecological terms, this is more efficient. A predator that survives the encounter but learns to avoid shieldbugs altogether becomes an unwitting ally, spreading avoidance behavior through its own actions. Over time, this creates a protective halo around the species, reducing attack rates without requiring constant deployment of chemicals. The effectiveness of this strategy depends on reliability. The spray must work the first time. There is no prolonged struggle in which the shieldbug can escalate gradually. When the chemical is released, it is released decisively. This is why the system is under muscular control rather than passive leakage. Wasting chemicals would leave the insect vulnerable later. Precision conserves resources. Thermoregulation influences this mechanism as well. Because the shieldbug is ectothermic, temperature affects both muscle performance and chemical volatility. Warmer conditions increase vaporization, allowing the spray to disperse more rapidly and penetrate sensory systems more effectively. Cooler temperatures reduce diffusion, requiring closer alignment and stronger pressure to achieve the same effect. The shieldbug adjusts accordingly, relying more heavily on posture and timing when conditions are less favorable. Predator behavior shifts instantly in response. A bird that attempts to seize a shieldbug often releases it mid-grasp, shaking its head violently, wiping its beak against branches in an effort to remove the residue. The bug may fall to the ground, but it is alive, its objective achieved. The predator does not pursue. The memory of the encounter lingers far longer than the chemical itself. This is where the shieldbug truly wins, not through survival alone, but through education. Predators are excellent learners. A single negative experience can permanently alter foraging choices, especially when alternative prey is abundant. The shieldbug's chemical defense exploits this cognitive flexibility, turning predators' intelligence against them. The environment reinforces this effect. Shieldbugs often inhabit plants where visual camouflage is only partial. Their bodies are noticeable upon close inspection, but not alarming. This encourages predators to test them, which in turn reinforces the lesson. Bright warning colors in some species amplify this dynamic, advertising the chemical defense openly. The signal says nothing about danger in the lethal sense. It says discomfort is guaranteed. The chemical spray also affects interactions beyond predation. Parasitoids and competitors encounter the same deterrent, reducing harassment and interference. Even microbial growth on the bug's surface can be inhibited by residual compounds, providing incidental protection against infection. The weapon, though designed for defense, has cascading benefits across multiple ecological pressures. There is an irony in how restrained the Shieldbug appears while wielding such influence. It does not chase, strike, or overpower. It waits. When threatened, it responds once decisively, then returns to stillness. The energy investment is minimal compared to the payoff. Evolution has favored this economy. Within the food web, Shieldbugs occupy a space defined by negotiation rather than dominance. They are not apex predators, nor are they passive prey. Their chemical defense allows them to coexist with a wide range of species without constant conflict. This stability contributes to balanced ecosystems, where interactions are moderated by learned behavior rather than repeated violence. Even reproduction benefits from this strategy. Eggs and nymphs, often clustered on host plants, gain indirect protection from adult chemical defenses. Predators that avoid adults are less likely to investigate nearby juveniles, increasing survival rates across generations. The invisible weapon extends its influence beyond the individual. As the scene draws back, the Shieldbug remains where it was, posture relaxed, chemical reserves intact. The predator has gone, altered by a brief but unforgettable experience. No blood was spilled. No chase occurred. Yet the outcome is clear. In this ecosystem, the Shieldbug has asserted control not through force, but through consequence. The lesson is written not in wounds, but in memory. And in a world where learning shapes survival as much as strength, that is more than enough. The forest floor of Madagascar is not a place of mercy. It is layered with rot and rebirth, a shifting mosaic of fallen leaves, decomposing wood, fungal threads, and the constant pressure of feet, claws, and jaws moving above and below the surface. Here, survival is less about dominance and more about endurance. In this compressed world, where space is tight and danger arrives from every angle, the Madagascar cockroach does not rely on speed, venom, or precision strikes. Its strategy is simpler and far more difficult to overcome. It refuses to be controlled. At first glance, the body seems unremarkable. Broad, flattened, armored, the cockroach moves slowly, deliberately, its silhouette hugging the ground as if gravity itself is an ally. This low-profile design is not accidental. It is the foundation of a survival strategy built around resisting force rather than countering it. Predators that hunt here do so with grabbing, crushing, and pinning. The cockroach is shaped to deny all three. The exoskeleton is the first line of defense. Thick, overlapping plates cover the body like layered shields, each segment able to flex independently while still distributing pressure across the whole structure. When force is applied from above, the plates do not crack easily. Instead, they spread the load, redirecting stress away from vulnerable internal organs. This is not rigid armor meant to deflect sharp blows. It is resilient armor designed to survive compression. Beneath these plates lies a body plan that further undermines attempts at control. The cockroach's internal organs are arranged in a way that tolerates deformation. Unlike animals with centralized, fragile structures, its physiology is distributed. There is no single point of failure that ends the fight immediately. A squeeze that would rupture softer insects becomes survivable here, absorbed by structure and redundancy. Predators feel this resistance instantly. A lizard snapping down expects collapse. A bird's beak closes anticipating fracture. Instead, the cockroach yields just enough to avoid breaking, then pushes back, legs braced against substrate, body wedged into irregularities of bark or soil. Grabbing it is like trying to hold a living wedge. The harder the grip, the more difficult extraction becomes. This resistance is amplified by the cockroach's flattened profile. By staying close to the ground, it reduces the angles from which it can be seized. There is no convenient protrusion to latch onto. The legs are splayed outward, ready to push in multiple directions at once. When threatened, the cockroach does not rear up or flee immediately. It presses down, expanding its contact with the surface, making itself harder to dislodge. Even when lifted, the struggle continues. The legs thrash not randomly, but with purpose, seeking contact with any surface that might provide leverage. The cockroach twists its body, exploiting the flexibility of its segments to break alignment with a predator's grip. Control is never given freely. Every second of struggle increases the chance that the predator loosens its hold or shifts position just enough for escape. Then there is the hiss. When air is forced through specialized spiracles along the abdomen, the cockroach produces a sharp, sustained sound that cuts through the ambient noise of the forest floor. This hiss is not a vocalization in the mammalian sense. It is mechanical, driven by rapid muscular contractions that expel air with surprising force. The sound is sudden, loud at close range, and deeply unnatural in a world where most insects are silent. The purpose of the hiss is not communication with other cockroaches. It is intimidation. Predators that rely on stealth and surprise are disrupted by sudden noise. The hiss startles, causing hesitation at the critical moment when grip and control are not yet secure. That hesitation is often enough. A bird flinches, a mammal loosens its bite, the cockroach drops free and vanishes into cover. This is behavioral warfare rather than physical harm. The cockroach does not need to injure its attacker. It needs to break the predator's rhythm. The hiss achieves this by violating expectation, injecting uncertainty into an encounter that predators prefer to resolve quickly. The effectiveness of this tactic is reinforced by repetition. Predators learn that cockroaches are not easy meals. They are time-consuming, resistant, and unpredictable. In an environment where easier prey exists, this reputation matters. Avoidance becomes the rational choice. Thermoregulation supports this endurance. As an ectotherm, the Madagascar cockroach benefits from the stable temperatures of its habitat. Warm conditions keep muscles responsive and joints flexible, allowing sustained resistance without fatigue. Cooler temperatures slow movement, but the armor-first strategy remains effective even when speed drops. Unlike predators that rely on bursts of activity, the cockroach's defenses do not fail with reduced metabolic output. The ecosystem shapes this dynamic further. The forest floor is cluttered, full of crevices and shelters that reward persistence over agility. A cockroach that survives the initial encounter can wedge itself into spaces inaccessible to larger predators. Its flattened body allows entry where claws and beaks cannot follow. Survival often depends on reaching these refuges, and the cockroach's morphology is optimized for exactly that. Beyond individual encounters, this refusal to be controlled has ecological consequences. Cockroaches are major decomposers, consuming fallen plant matter and recycling nutrients back into the soil. Their persistence ensures that this process continues even under heavy predation pressure. Remove the cockroach, and decomposition slows, affecting fungal growth, soil structure, and nutrient availability for plants. Endurance at the individual level scales up to stability at the ecosystem level. There is also an overlooked social dimension. While not social in the same way as ants or bees, Madagascar cockroaches often aggregate in sheltered spaces. This clustering can amplify defensive effects. A predator disturbing a group may trigger multiple hisses at once, creating a confusing auditory burst that further discourages attack. What begins as an individual defense becomes a collective deterrent. The irony is that despite their resilience, these cockroaches are not aggressive. They do not chase, bite, or retaliate. Their entire strategy revolves around persistence and denial. They survive by being inconvenient, by turning every interaction into a contest of effort that predators rarely wish to win. As the scene settles, the cockroach remains motionless beneath a log, plates pressed flat, legs tucked close. The danger has passed not because the cockroach fought back, but because it refused to yield. In a world obsessed with weapons that pierce, sting, or poison, this strategy stands apart. Here, the most effective defense is not inflicting damage, but enduring pressure, not overpowering the enemy, but making control impossible. The Madagascar cockroach survives not by winning encounters outright, but by outlasting them, proving that sometimes the most powerful weapon in nature is simply the ability to remain unbroken. The leaf trembles under a shifting breeze, sunlight flickering across its surface in broken flashes of green and gold. At the edge of the frame, something small moves with deliberate calm. The ladybug advances slowly, its rounded body bright against the plant tissue beneath it, a vivid signal that seems almost out of place in a world built on camouflage and concealment. Red, orange, black, spotted in precise contrast, the insect does not hide. It advertises. In doing so, it reveals a survival strategy that relies not on strength or speed, but on consequence that extends far beyond the moment of attack. In ecosystems crowded with predators, size is usually a liability. Small insects are easy to seize, easy to crush, easy to swallow without thought. The ladybug violates that expectation. Its body is compact, dome-shaped, and deceptively fragile in appearance, yet it carries one of the most influential weapons in the insect world, the ability to shape predator behavior long after a single encounter ends. This is not a defense that stops a bite in progress. It is a defense that prevents future bites from ever occurring. The first layer of this strategy is visual. The ladybug's coloration is not random decoration. It is aposematic signaling, a biological warning system that announces chemical defense before contact is made. Bright colors contrast sharply with natural backgrounds, ensuring that the insect is noticed rather than overlooked. In the visual language of predators, such patterns mean danger, difficulty, or regret. Birds, reptiles, and mammals that hunt by sight encounter this signal repeatedly across landscapes, learning that certain color combinations carry costs. But warning colors alone are meaningless without reinforcement. The system works because the message is true. When threatened, the ladybug employs a mechanism known as reflex bleeding. Under pressure, small joints in the legs release droplets of hemolymph, the insect equivalent of blood. This fluid is not simply a metabolic byproduct. It is chemically fortified, infused with alkaloid compounds synthesized from the ladybug's diet. These chemicals taste bitter, irritate mucous membranes, and in some cases induce mild toxicity. The sensation is immediate and unmistakable. A predator that attempts to bite or mouth a ladybug experiences this defense within seconds. The taste is wrong. The texture is unpleasant. The experience disrupts feeding behavior, often triggering rapid release. The ladybug may fall from the leaf or drop to the ground, but it is alive. The encounter ends not with injury inflicted, but with information delivered. This distinction is critical. The ladybug does not rely on venom to incapacitate or on armor to resist crushing force. Its survival hinges on teaching. The chemical defense is not powerful enough to kill most predators. It does not need to be. Its role is to create a negative association strong enough to be remembered. Predators are excellent learners. A young bird sampling its environment may attack indiscriminately at first, testing shapes and movements. When it encounters a ladybug, the outcome is memorable. The bright colors paired with an unpleasant taste create a linked memory. Over time, this learning generalizes. The bird begins to avoid not only that individual insect, but any similar pattern. The benefit to the ladybug population is profound. One sacrificed encounter can protect countless individuals that follow. The environment amplifies this effect. Ladybugs often aggregate during certain periods, especially during overwintering. Large numbers of individuals displaying the same warning colors increase the frequency with which predators encounter and learn from the defense. The repetition strengthens avoidance behavior, embedding it deeply into predator decision-making processes. The weapon here is not the chemical itself, but the reliability of the signal. The dome-shaped body reinforces this system. Its curvature makes it difficult to grip securely, causing predators to reposition their bite and increasing the likelihood of contact with the defensive fluid. The smooth surface also encourages slipping, further disrupting handling. Even the way the ladybug tucks in its legs when threatened contributes to survival, protecting vulnerable joints while directing pressure toward the areas that release hemolymph. Thermoregulation plays a subtle role in this defense. Ladybugs are ectothermic, their activity levels governed by temperature. In cooler conditions, they move slowly, relying more heavily on chemical defense and coloration. In warmer conditions, mobility increases, allowing them to escape more easily after a failed predation attempt. The defensive strategy remains effective across this range because it does not depend on speed alone. Diet links directly to defense. Ladybugs feed heavily on aphids and other plant-feeding insects that contain defensive compounds derived from their host plants. By consuming these prey, ladybugs acquire the chemical building blocks needed to synthesize their own alkaloids. This trophic connection ties the ladybug's survival to the structure of the ecosystem. Changes in prey availability can influence the strength of chemical defenses, altering predator-prey dynamics at a broader scale. Ecologically, ladybugs are more than defended prey. They are important regulators of insect populations, particularly aphids that damage plants by extracting sap and transmitting disease. By controlling these herbivores, ladybugs support plant health and influence agricultural productivity. Their survival strategy ensures that this ecological role continues even in predator-rich environments. There is an elegance to how little force is involved. The ladybug does not fight. It does not chase away threats. It simply presents a consistent truth about itself. Bright colors say, "Do not eat me." The chemicals confirm it. Memory does the rest. Even predators that are physiologically capable of tolerating the chemicals often avoid ladybugs anyway, choosing safer, more palatable prey. This avoidance is not about pain alone. It is about efficiency. In a world of limited energy, wasting time on unpleasant food is a losing strategy. The ladybug leverages this calculus perfectly. Over evolutionary time, this system has proven remarkably stable. The warning colors persist because the defense works. The defense works because predators remember. Memory becomes an ecological force, shaping interactions long after individual encounters have ended. The ladybug's influence extends outward, affecting predator foraging patterns, prey community composition, and plant health. As the scene settles, the ladybug pauses at the edge of the leaf, wings hidden beneath its hardened shell. It is small, exposed, and brightly visible, yet largely ignored. The danger has passed, not because the ladybug escaped unseen, but because it was seen and remembered. In this ecosystem, survival does not always belong to the strongest or fastest. Sometimes it belongs to the species that teaches the best lesson. Here, the weapon is not damage. It is consequence carried forward in the minds of others. And in the quiet economy of nature, that is power enough.